right.
Okay, let's see. Maybe I can also add my Facebook to it. I can just try.
Yeah, so we're live. Welcome everybody to the Azure and AI Show. We have two speakers with us this week, Leo and Rex, and we have Hal and Dan with us. Hal is celebrating 31 years as being a Microsoft MVP. And he just got his badge in the post there he was showing us. Nice little badge to stick on your thing. Is it a ceramic or steel one, Hal?
I don't know what it's made of. It's
a metallic one with a magnet on the back, so you can just put it over your clothes, basically.
Oh yes, very nice. I haven't received my one yet, so during the week. So Leo, do you want to share your screen there with us?
Yes, 1 second.
And if we get any questions in from the audience, we'll show them to you at the end of your presentation. Okay, yeah. We can see your screen there now, yeah. Secure your cloud automations.
Let me check that it's working.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should see it soon. Okay.
Yeah, we can see it.
Then, if you want, I can start.
Yeah.
There's not any more announcements.
No,
Okay.
that's it. And we have Carol joined us there as well, Carol Griffin.
Good afternoon.
Hi, Carol.
Hello.
Okay.
Hey, Carol.
Hi.
So, welcome everyone to my talk about the secure your cloud automations. I will quickly introduce myself. I'm Leo Visser. I'm a consultant at OGD. It's a company from the Netherlands. We will soon be renaming to Build Beyond Technology Group. And I consult in AI, automation, cloud stuff. I just like to tinker with technology. I'm also the organizer for the Dutch PowerShell user group, the DAPSAC, and I'm an Azure MVP for PowerShell. So today I'm going to talk to you about automations, cloud automations, and how we can secure them. But why would you use automations in the cloud? And this is mostly, first off, to shift left tasks. If you have some automations, you can have the task performed by users who normally don't need all the permissions or don't need everything or don't need all the knowledge. You can give them some scripts to run, and this way they can do it. Other way around, sorry. It's also useful for maintenance. So say you need to periodically check stuff, perform stuff, updates, and so on. Maybe closing down servers. I've seen situations where you need to close down startup servers. This stuff can be done with automations. The nice thing about automations in the cloud is you can use consumption-based billing. So instead of just having a machine somewhere always ready or whatever, by using the cloud-based situations, you can try to minimize the cost. And there's a lot of nice integrations with the platform you can use. So in this presentation, I will show you 3 different cases where we look at a situation and then how we could improve it. So the first one is the type of automation many people will start with. It's just a scheduled script. So say, for example, I have some kind of virtual machine somewhere, and what I want to do is I want to get some stuff from a database, maybe do something with it, send something back. These are the kinds of scripts we might be using. It might be some kind of synchronization script. It might be some script taking stuff from the database from your HR system, and then based on this do mutations in your identity system, things like this. So let's take a look at this. Here I've got a virtual machine. So we're inside a virtual machine which is hosted in Azure. And here I've got the VM script. So this is just a script which could be running on a virtual machine. I could select this all, run it, and we will see nothing happening because I first need to add something to my database. So here I've got a table in a storage account, and let's add a nice entry to it. Let's say, hello, Azure and AI Show. Let's insert this. Now we go back. Why I didn't see anything is because I'm only trying to get the entries from the last hour. So I'm running the script again, and now here we see, hello, Azure and AI Show. This script is running, and it is nice. What I'm doing is I'm using what we call a managed identity on the virtual machine. But it has some limitations, like I don't really have any logging, or if the script fails, things might be working not so well. What is the managed identity? You see here, I connect to Azure and I'm using the dash identity in PowerShell. I can zoom in a bit more. Here I use the PowerShell commando to connect. This is tied to, if I go to the VM, to the identity of the virtual machine. So here it shows that there's a system assigned managed identity. And I can just log in and use this identity and give this identity permissions. So I've been very lazy for this demo. And I've just given this identity permission to be the owner of this storage account. So here we see the script runner 01. This way I don't have to worry about which permissions exactly I need. Of course, if you do this in a production environment, you give it only the minimum permissions required. But like I said, we do want to have some logging, and we do want to do something when the script fails. So an improved version of this script would be that I'm also using a key vault and the application insights. So application insights I can use to log what's happening. So I want to have some logs I can easily access, and especially if I have multiple servers running, just having a text file on these servers might be a bit annoying. If you need to troubleshoot it, log into the server, find the right text file. So having this all in a centralized place is nice. And why do I use the key vault? I use the key vault to get the date which I want to use. In this original script, I'm just looking at the things from the last 60 minutes. But if I go to the more resilient script, we again have just login. Here I'm going to do some telemetry. I will get back to this in a second. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to retrieve what I call a check date. So in my storage account, which is a secure enclave, I'm storing the date of which I last checked the database. And at the end of the script, I set the new date. So here I store the new check date as a value. So if the script ran successfully, the new value is stored, and next time I will retrieve it from this value. If the script fails in any way, I know that next time the script runs, it has to retrieve from more back. This way I know for sure that if something fails, I won't miss any data. I'm using what we call the telemetry helper module in PowerShell, and this gives me a very nice way to just connect to application insights and send some traces where I can send the message like script started or got the threshold from the key vault and so on. So if we run all this, it's installing the module, which takes a second or two. And then again, we got the Hello Azure and AI Show. We now go to the application inside and refresh here. And let's say we only take the last hour to clean it up a little bit. Then here we see script started, which is like less than a minute ago. It said it got the threshold from the key vault. So this was the date it had in there last. This is a couple of hours ago. This is when I was testing if everything was working today. It said it got one result. Oh. And then it says it's set a new threshold to this. So this way I can easily store some logs and I can have multiple different scripts right to this place and have it centralized. So this is the script on the VM. But like I said already, we want to use the consumption-based billing. So we want to improve this. We want to use more of the services provided by Azure, which don't use a virtual machine because I need to have the virtual machine running all the time. This costs a lot of money, wastes a lot of energy. So let's use what we call an Azure automation account. If I have an Azure automation account, I can have a script inside Azure, and Azure will manage all the underlying infrastructure for me, and I can just run the script. So if I go to the automation account, this is an automation account. In the automation account, I have runbooks, and here I've got an automation one. We can view it, and we can see this is a very complicated script. It just says hello world. And in here, I could start it. I could link it to a schedule. I could do all kinds of things. One thing which is nice is that you can also use what is called a webhook. So you could add a webhook to your script, which is like an URL or something, and from inside an application or whatever, you could call this. So on my VM, for example, I've got the URL here. A little bit is cut off in this screen, so you can't see the whole URL. Even if you do see this online, don't worry. By the time you'll be watching this back, the URL will be changed. And if today or now you want to enjoy and try to run this URL, go ahead. You just get a hello world back. And I just invoke it. And this is just a little bit of code to wait until the thing is done and then present me with the output. So if I run this, it's now waiting for the output. If I go to Azure, we see that now a job is queued. I will go to the overview. So it has been called by the webhook and it's queued and now it's starting. So Azure is assigning some kind of infrastructure for me where the script will be running on, and then it will start in a second. This always takes a while. So these kinds of systems you don't want to use if you need a type of script which instantly responds. But say you have some kind of ITSM system where you have a standard change or a standard change where somebody requests, say, a shared email box, and they fill out a form. You can have somebody from the service desk check that all the information is correct. And if so, click a button and send the information directly to your script via this webhook. You can also add parameters to the webhook and then run it. And we should see now that we've got the hello world back as output. So this is nice and well. Again, sorry, my scroll wheel for my mouse is a little bit wonky, so sometimes it's scrolling along. I need to get a new mouse. So again, I can use like the managed identity if I want for things. I can have the automation account connected as a managed identity to retrieve things and from my system. The logging, there is logging inside an automation account, but it's only for 90 days. And a big problem I had now was that there's a secret exposed in the code because this webhook, everybody can use it. And if I want to have this code on some public repository or on some repository where more people can access it, I don't really want to have this exposed in the code. It's not best practice. So what I'm going to do is, again, I'm going to use a key vault. And I'm going to use this key vault to get the thing. So let's go look at the demo. So here we've got the secured one. And now I'm just going to connect to my key vault and I'm storing this webhook inside my key vault. I'm using here the Azure PowerShell commands, but you can also do this by just REST API calls. So if you have this ETSM software or whatever, you can retrieve also this webhook URL, by it, and then add it to the systems or have it triggered from some kind of machine or other system. We're going to look at systems which are even easier to implement, but especially if you want to trigger this remotely, this is the way to do it. If we run it, we will again see that if we refresh it, one is queued and it will start and it will continue. So I don't think I have to show this anymore. Now, the Azure automation account is nice. And if you're using PowerShell or whatever, this is a nice way to do some automations, especially if you need some schedules. The automation accounts are quite nice. But if you want to do more complicated stuff, if you want to connect systems together or whatever, a lot of the times these webhooks are not the most nice way to use it. So you want to go towards an Azure function. So I can just call Azure functions also. Let me quickly show you the Azure function. So an Azure function is a resource you create in Azure. And inside this resource, you can have your functions. And here I've also used PowerShell. When you create this, you get exactly this function, by the way. This is the default function you get. I didn't change anything on it. There's like some request things, and you can get the name from it. And here it will return the body, hello, the name you've sent. This is the HTTP trigger function executed successfully. So if you just create an Azure function, this is the basic thing you get. And from here, you can improve it. You can develop these with Visual Studio Code inside here or whatever. They do have something which are called function keys. So if you want to call this function, you do need to add the function key. This is kind of like an API key. So you need to add this to be able to call it. Now I'm going to open the logs here just for fun, so we can see what's happening. And what this does is it just connects to application insight, and it will show me the logs which are happening. And here again, I've got the URL for the Azure function, and here we have like the API key added to it. So I could call this, and we will see, oh, we already got the response back. So these ones are a lot quicker than the automation accounts in the response. And if we go back to the logs, we see it was called, it's doing some stuff, and here I've got some information back. If I go back to my application insight, and I refresh here, we will also see these same calls here because I've connected this Azure function to the same application insight. So this way I can always see the traces happening. So I was using a VM, and via the managed identity, or sorry, via the API call I was connecting to it, this Azure function has a managed identity, so it could also easily connect to whatever system, just as my VM did. So I can use these same systems. It has logging already. It's connected with the application insight. I can use an API key. I can actually give different people different API keys if I want to, and it starts almost instantly. But we say in the zero trust world that we kind of want to verify explicitly and so on. And these API keys, they are not the best way to do it. So wouldn't it be nice if I could just use some user authentication? If I could just make sure that it's really authored the right way. So to achieve this, what I can do is I can add an API management in between. What I've got here is a Azure API management service. I'm just using the consumption tier, so I'm only paying for the amount which it's being used. And what I've done here, I've added my automation to it. So this connects to my Azure function. There's a very easy way to add it to a function. If you go to the APIs, you can just here select a function app, click it, and it will add it. And the only thing I actually did was I added a policy to it. So I added a policy called validate JWT. In here, I've set the type of configuration I'm using, the OpenID. I set the issuer, which is the default Azure issuer. And I've set the app ID. And the app ID, it's just the managed identity. So I'm looking for the enterprise application, and I'm taking the application ID, which I'm adding here. And this is the one from my VM, because I want my VM to be calling the function eventually. But if you're using a different system, it would be the managed identity from this system. Now I can connect to Azure. I just have the URL without the function key. I have the URL now from my API management instead of the function. I'm getting my access token, and I'm adding the access token to the authorization header. And let's just for fun first, yeah, we've got the logs still open. Call it, and we got the response back. And we see here that it's called again. So this way, with API management, you can actually have a layer around it and make sure that it's authored the right way. So no solution is perfect. Sometimes you just need to have the script on the virtual machine, especially if you just have a thing you want to run once or once in a while, or you have like this script for onboarding of stuff. Running it on a VM is perfectly fine, but keep in mind to still make it secure. keep in mind your automations can fail. So make sure you have these graceful failures and don't fail somewhere in between and have no idea what happened, what didn't happen. Make sure you use logging so you can look back what exactly happened. And feel free to use multiple systems. If you have some stuff which works best with automation accounts, some stuff which works best with Azure Functions, just use it both. You can easily have them call each other with webhooks, with URLs and whatsoever. With these managed identities, it's very easy to all connect it. That was the talk. I hope you enjoyed it. You can connect with me on LinkedIn by scanning the QR code. You see my blog in the bottom left. I post regularly about this kind of stuff. You can follow me on the socials. And if you ever find me on a conference and you like these stickers you saw on the screen, this one or the other one, just ask me and I will probably have these stickers with me. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed it. And if there's any questions now or later, post them in the comments or ask them now.
Okay, very good, Leo. That was a great presentation. And the demo, everything went perfect, you know, in these live events. So there was a lot on the chat coming in there from Christopher Wagner. And I think Rex kind of gave a few, let me see, put some up on the screen there. So no Opeyemi critical. And he had another one there, API management, how do we do that? So you kind of
which I then explained. So
yeah,
I think the next comment was indeed, nice.
Yeah. So, and then Rex kind of told him there, we had it on the Azure and AI show there 2 weeks ago as well. So they're all...
Yeah, there's like a lot of different ways to protect this. So indeed, using the network security groups to lock it down even more, which is good. You can also use the visualizations, what's it called again? The flow monitor on your virtual networks, where you log the data going through it. And this you can also visualize. So layers and layers and layers of security. It's always the Swiss cheese model.
Yeah. There, and there is the other one there from Rex there. Just tell him to go back and have a look at the function apps in the Azure and AI show there 2 weeks ago. So yeah, Christopher, he's saying nice. Okay. We've got Stephen, thanks very much. That was a great demo. I'll contact you on LinkedIn. Very good. Christopher, well done. You guys are great. Thanks very much.
We're not done yet.
So yeah, gonna have a catch up on the old stream. Okay, awesome. We've got somebody else here. Thank you, Leo. I was curious about this kind of automation and also how you would make sure that the things you showed on the screen wouldn't leak.
Well, I just make sure I don't use any critical automations in the demo, and I'm now going to re-roll all the keys.
Okay, cool. So we had a good bit of interaction there. That's good. So next up is Rex, and if you want to share your screen there with us. There you go. Yeah, I can see it there now. Azure Virtual Networks, Network Manager, Pairing Networks the easy way. Okay, over to you. Just got one or two other things there just to show on the screen before you carry on, Rex. So, Isha, thank you. And then we have another, how would this work for IAC kind of setup, as well as for things like Azure GitOps. is the
Yeah.
best way of approaching it. I think that's
Yeah,
the
so if you're using things like Azure DevOps, you can use the federated servers, federated service principle, I believe it's called, so the service connection, which is also like passwordless and uses this kind of managed identity. You can also, if you're using either GitHub or Azure DevOps and you're running it on your own runners, you can give these runners managed identities and use these managed identities in your authentication. So there's also many different ways of doing this. If you need to call some kinds of scripts somewhere along the way, you can also use what is called a deployment script inside your deployments if you're using Azure. And this deployment script, again, you can give a either system managed identity or a user managed identity, and then also edit. If you do a system managed identity, you do need to make sure you need to add the permissions also. If you use a user assigned managed identity, you can have the managed identity already in your environment and just link it to the deployment script so it gets these permissions, and then after the deployment script is done, it will be unlinked again. And I don't really want to say anything about Okta.
Okay, we won't show that. So okay, very good. So Rex, over to you there. So
All right, thank you very much. Also, thank you, Leo. Well, it's a Dutch party today. All right, so Azure Virtual Network Manager, herding networks the easy way. Hopefully, you guys gonna find it interesting. First, a little about me. My name is Rex de Koning. I'm a senior cloud engineer at a Dutch company called Inspark. Just like Leo, I'm an Azure MVP, only I'm in the networking field. I'm also a Microsoft certified trainer, and I use the HackTech community a lot because I love to do a lot of stuff for a lot of events in Europe, helping out in whatever way I can. If you want to get in touch with me, you can scan this QR code. It will bring you to my Linktree account, which has links to all my socials, GitHub, and whatnot. All right, so what are we going to talk about today? Well, first of all, we're going to see what exactly is the Azure Virtual Network Manager. We're going to see when to use it, also when not to use it. And lastly, we're going to see at what the moving parts are within the Virtual Network Manager, because it's just one resource, but it has a lot of parts in it. So we're going to touch them all, hopefully within the time frame. So the Azure Virtual Network Manager, what is it? Well, basically, it's made up of 4 main parts. It's the centralized connectivity management. So this will help you create and manage complex network topologies. You can do hub and spoke. You can do mesh networks. And the great thing, it will do it automatically for you if you set it up correctly, of course. But it also works over multiple subscriptions, multiple regions, and even over multiple tenants. So it's a great tool to have if you have a very big network environment. Then we have the Global Security Administration, which basically means, in a nutshell, because we're going to come back to that, is that you can set up special network security group rules, let's call it like that, to override all your network security rules. We have network grouping, so we can group networks together using some different techniques and apply settings to those. And of course, we can do automated scaling and deployment. So by using network grouping, for example, we can automatically scale our hub and spoke environment, our mesh environment, without too much manual work. So when to use it? Theoretically, you can use it in every environment that you want, but it doesn't always make sense. So basically, if you have a large network environment, scaling to on-prem, multiple tenants, multiple regions, then it could make sense to use Azure Virtual Network Manager, just because to make things easier. Also because of some features that it has in there, just to make the administration of your network addressing much easier. If you want to enforce the centralized security rules, it's also a good thing to use the Azure Virtual Network Manager. So, for example, if you have, you should have network security groups on all your networks. Let's start with that. But if they're all set up and something is not working, sometimes it's difficult to open up one or two, or to find out which one you need to open up to allow certain traffic to do some debugging, for example. And with the centralized security rules, you can just set one rule from one location, which trickles down towards over your whole network, opening up certain ports just like you want, or closing them down. We can use dynamic grouping for automation. So if you automatically want to add or remove networks from a certain configuration, you can use tags or policies and manage your network environment like that. And another thing that there is simplified routing. So normally when you have routing, especially in a hub-spoke model, you have to work with user-defined routes on all networks to route all your traffic towards some device, usually an Azure firewall or a network virtual appliance, which does firewalling for you. And with a lot of networks, that can get very messy. And again, with the Azure Virtual Network Manager, there is one central pane of glass where you can set a routing table for your whole environment. There are some different things that you can do, which we'll see later on. But it all makes life a lot easier to manage the network, especially at scale. And when not to use the Azure Virtual Network Manager, in smaller or single region deployments, it doesn't always make sense to use the Azure Virtual Network Manager. It's an Azure resource, so there are costs involved with it, and that's not always needed. If you want things really granular at a subnet level, it also doesn't make much sense to use the Azure Virtual Network Manager, as that only works on virtual networks and not so much at the subnet level. Again, the budgetary constraints, it costs money to use the Azure Virtual Network Manager or its sub-resources. And if you have a really high volume on-premise branch connectivity, it probably makes more sense to, for example, use Azure Virtual One as to use the Azure Virtual Network Manager and fiddle around with all kinds of connections. Although I think it's GA at the moment, but you can also use Azure Virtual Network Manager with Virtual One. So that's something that's not used much at the moment, but it's getting there. And now basically we come to the interesting parts of the Azure Virtual Network Manager. So as mentioned, there are some sub-resources. So there is IPAM, so that's IP address management. There are some things that we can do with network groups. We have some different configuration styles. And we're going to talk about those in the next couple of slides. So IPAM, IP address management, is basically a centralized server within the Azure Virtual Network Manager, where you can create your IP addresses and assign them to different networks. You can do this in the portal, but also via your IRC code. And within the IPAM, there are some concepts. So we have I hate this word, trickle-down IP pools. Sorry for that. We have automatic allocation, we have static reservations, and we have utilization monitoring. So we can see exactly how many IP addresses we have in use. So if we look at the hierarchical IP pools, I really hate this word. As you can see here, it's built up. You have a parent pool. You give it a certain IP range. So in the slide that I have here, I have a /16 network. So that's 65,000 IP addresses, of which you can see at the moment there's 3% used, because I have some child IP pools defined under that. We have the automatic allocation. So basically what we can do there is we can segment our virtual network space. And just as you would do when you create a new virtual network, you can just give a piece of your IPAM environment to your virtual network, and it will just attach to that piece of the pool, and you don't have to define it manually. And then just as normal, when you deploy resources, then Azure will automatically assign the IP addresses from that specific subnet that you've gotten from IPAM. There's also I think it's a very handy tool that's called static reservation. And basically what that is, if you have an address space that looks a lot like your on-prem and Azure. So for example, you both use the 1031 network for some reason. You can also say, well, this specific network, so I've chosen a /20 in this example, is used static, because that's, for example, my on-prem network. And then IPAM will not release any addresses from that static CDR range, so that you can see that you have that address in use somewhere. So if you give it a logical name, you can also see that it's on-prem, for example. But the addresses in that static CDR range will not get allocated towards your Azure resources. So that's a really handy way to get a total overview of your IP network within Azure and incorporating all your branches, on-prem and perhaps other cloud providers. And another thing that we can do in IPAM is the utilization monitoring. So what you can see here is basically that you can see this is the parent pool that we had. So you can see we had a /16 address pool. We have allocated a number of address spaces. We still have a number of them available that we didn't assign to a virtual network yet, but we did create the pool. So we can see exactly how many IPs we have allocated. In this case, we have 0% IP usage. So even though the IP ranges are assigned to a virtual network, there are currently no resources deployed which use an IP address from one of those subnets. And if we look towards a child subnet, a child allocation, which we deploy to a subnet. So we have a /24 here in this case. And here you can see that for the specific VNet, where we allocated the /24 address range, we divided that address range in a couple of subnets which are smaller than the /24, /27s in this case. And you can see that, for example, in the bottom one, subnet 1, we allocated one of the 32 available addresses to a resource. And that also shows back in the VNet 1, where you can see that we allocated one of 256 addresses that were available to a resource. So the utilization monitoring is a great tool to see how many addresses you really have in use in your VNet, in your subnets, and in your whole network. Then we have the next part, which is the network groups. Let me have a drink. And basically, what it says on the screen here, within the Azure Virtual Network Manager, you can create containers, which are just logical containers that there's nothing physical or deployed for it. It's just a setting where you can say, well, I group all my VNets of a certain kind together in one container, and then towards that container, I can apply my connectivity, my security, and my routing. So you can make different network groups to build up a network within your environment. So you can, for example, set up a hub and spoke network, or you can set up a mesh network, and they can just coexist in the same environment, but you can manage them separately from each other. The network groups are global containers, so they also work over regions. So if you have networks in different regions, you can still combine them in the same containers. One network can also exist in multiple containers. If it's a good thing to use, that's debatable because it will make your life harder, but it's definitely an option. And it's a logical segmentation, so there's nothing really defined. It's just basically administrative node. Well, we group this together and we group those together, and that's it. And the grouping of the network groups, the networks in the network groups is done in one of two ways, either via static membership. So you go into your network group and you just define, I want that network and that network and that network. But the great thing is you can also do it dynamically via policies. And that's not exactly the same as an Azure policy. It's a policy for the network groups. And what you do in those policies, for example, is where you can say, well, if a network has a specific tag, for example, with a specific value, then it belongs to this network group. So you can just create your virtual networks, you give them a tag, and because of that tag, they will automatically be placed in a certain network group. So for example, if you have a network group that's meant to do your hub-spoke configuration, and you add a new VNet with that specific tag, it will automatically get inserted into the network group. And you will see that it will automatically also be implemented in the hub-spoke network as an extra spoke. And then all the correct pairings will be set up. The network routing that is needed will be set up without you doing anything else, for example. So it's really a great tool to manage your networks. I keep saying that, sorry, but I really love this tool. Then the next part we have is configurations. So we have three types of configurations within the network groups. So we have connectivity, security, and routing. So if you look towards connectivity, those are the two that I already mentioned. It's a hub-spoke connectivity or a mesh network. So hub-spoke, well, we all know that you just have one hub, different spokes, and all traffic is based from the spokes is going towards the hub. And the other thing is a mesh network, and that's not completely the same as a hub-spoke. In a mesh network, it's basically one flat network where everything is connected to each other and everything can talk to each other, but there's no network defined as a hub, basically. So all the settings within your network define where your traffic is going. Then the second part that we have is the security admin rules. And I'm guessing everybody is and should be familiar with network security groups on networks. And if you are familiar with them, or if you're not, I'm going to explain what they are. They're basically a set of rules that you can put upon a virtual network, which define the traffic that is allowed within to reach the resources in your network, or what is allowed to go out from your network to somewhere. And in those network security groups, like I said, mentioned, you basically you allow some specific traffic in and you block everything else. But it could be that you, for debugging, need to open up a specific port from a or something specific from a specific IP address, which is normally not allowed. And by using security admin rules, you can do this in one central place, apply it to your network security group, and then every VNet in that network security group will get the security admin rules added basically to the network security group in front of the existing rules. So the security admin rules will always be processed before hitting the original network security group rules. And if we're looking at those rule types, there are 3 types of rules. We have allow rules, we have deny rules, and these basically work the same as in a normal network security group. So if I set an allow rule, for example, for port 22 SSH to open, then it will be allowed from the security admin rules. But if on a higher level, port 22 is closed within the network security group, then you still cannot reach a resource on port 22. And the third type is always allow, and if you make a rule of that type, and even though you closed port 22, for example, in your network security group, it will still be allowed from the security admin rules that you set up. So if you used always the allow, you basically override all the rules that are set up for a specific resource or for a specific network, making debugging or access to specific resources much easier than opening up a lot of rules in the network security groups throughout your whole network. And then the last configuration that we have, that is the routing. And basically the routing setup within Azure Virtual Network Manager is exactly the same as the routing that you would do in a user-defined route. So you just set up, well, I want all this traffic for this specific sitter to go to an Azure firewall. I want some traffic to go left or right. Here you can set it all up just like you would do with a user-defined route, only in a central place. And it works exactly the same with rule corrections and rules. But they basically have one extra option. And that makes it very interesting. So there are two options, managed only and existing. So if you use managed only, and then whether you have a user-defined route on your network or not, the managed routing table will be connected to that network. So it will just be overwritten if you already have one. But the second one is also very interesting for some environments. And that's the existing mode. And what that does is if you already have a UDR on your network, it will keep that one in place, but it will add the managed route to that network, to that routing table. It also has its drawbacks, of course, because you can override things that you want or that you don't want. But for some things, it's just easier to keep the existing table and just add the specific config to it. So basically, this was Azure Virtual Network Manager in a nutshell. We only had 20 minutes for this. If you want to reach out to me, I also have some very nice demos to go with this session. But if I do the demos, we'll be at about an hour worth of time. So that was a bit of overkill for today. Yeah, so if you have questions, please put them in the chat or reach out to me. And thank you for attending. And again, this is the QR code that you can scan to get in touch with me if you want to know more or have other questions that you cannot think of today. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Rex. Great presentation. And if you do have some demos, we have a free slot next week if you want to come to do a demo if you're free. Those to carry on with the networking. Or maybe
I'll think about it.
the week after or whatever. Yeah, so we had one or two messages kind of came in. This was really interesting in the side of VLANs as well for upcoming AZ802 related learning.
Yeah, well, the AZ802 is a bit broader than that because it's basically the replacement of the 801, 800 and 801. So the Windows administration exams. So that's mostly related, and you can also see by the word of VLAN on-prem network, Active Directory, ADDS, and that kind of stuff. But yeah, if you see a VNet as a VLAN, there are some comparable things.
Okay, so Chris kind of great content, got to run, have the best ever. And then we had somebody else there. Sorry, I joined late, but you can actually look back because we have it. Just want to know, will it benefit data engineers?
Well, no, yeah, well, yes and no, but not directly because the data engineers usually don't work with networks. So the infrastructure guys will set up the networks and do all the things, and then the data engineers can just do their stuff, and hopefully then everything is set up correctly.
Very good. So we're nearly up on the hour. Thanks again for great demos, great presentations. And we had a good few questions in. 1 second, there was just this one. I'll just put it up on the screen. Thanks, Rex. Just to ask a bit about the side of things. How much do you feel you should know for the overall exam?
So no, I can't answer on that one. I just know some bits and pieces that I've read myself online, but I haven't done the exam myself yet, so I'm not sure yet what it's all about.
Okay. I think then.
Thanks for you also for hosting this, of course.
Thanks, Leo. We're on every week, every Saturday, kind of like 50 weeks of the year. So we've been going now 3.5 years. And yeah, we've got some great people that joined us over the period of time. Dan has just left us, but Dan was one of the former founders of the Azure AI Show.
Okay.
Okay, so there is, thanks again, definitely a good overview for me to get a bit more insight. Okay, Hal, what do you think? Interesting stuff?
Oh, very interesting stuff. This is not stuff that I play with every day, and so this type of information and education is really really delightful and highly useful and very, very much worthwhile. I sincerely enjoyed both of those presentations. I thought they were both excellent.
Thank you very much.
Oh, you're very
Thank you very
welcome, and
much.
thank you for presenting.
Well, our pleasure, I would say.
Indeed.
Yeah, and it was great having all Dutch one this week.
Yeah,
So-
we keep meeting each other everywhere, so
Yeah, usually not in the Netherlands, by the way.
yeah.
For some reason.
Very
Most
good.
fun I have ever had. I was able to one of the very last tech eds
Oh, wow.
in Europe that they held was in Amsterdam, and that is the fondest, most wonderful trip I think I've ever made. I thoroughly enjoyed Amsterdam and would go back there in a heartbeat.
Very good. There's Dan. Great show and demos. So, Rex, you're an MCT and as well, are you?
I am, yeah.
Me too,
For
by the
now,
way.
it's my last year, but
It's your last year. You'll have to come to Dublin to see the MCT summit.
well, I was at the MCT Summit last year in Manchester
Yeah.
in 2025. I also took care of some of helping out the organization and taking care of the volunteers, and also had a session there. So it was a great event.
Yeah, I was at that one looking up to.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the snow. You remember the snow?
Oh, it was terrible. I was so lucky. So the event was on a Saturday, and a lot of people were flying out on Sunday. But I was lucky enough that I booked a flight out on Monday. So on Sunday, the weather was so terrible. The airport got shut down, flights got cancelled. So everybody had to struggle to get hotels and stay everywhere. And I was lucky enough to already have my hotel room.
Very good. So, guys, we're up on the hour, and thanks again. And I'll be here back next week for the Azure and AI show again with some new speakers. Thanks again. Have a good rest of your day.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Frank.
Lord Arnold, I'll be back.
Thank you very much.